Okay, we can start.
Okay, so everybody, welcome to the webinar with Jakub Zakrzewski, organized by Lotus League Foundation. At the beginning, I would like to ask all participants to mute their microphones until the Q&A session and turn off the cameras as the event is broadcast on YouTube. Firstly, I would like to say shortly about Lotus League Foundation, which was founded in 2018 by the alumni of the leading universities in Poland and Asia, such as SGH, University of Warsaw, and National University of Singapore. The main goal of Lotus League is strengthening the relationships between the most ambitious young professionals from Europe and Asia. We organize projects like Polish Exchange Night in Singapore, Doing Business in China, and the biggest one, Congress for Polish Asian Cooperation. As part of Lotus League, we also write articles for websites like Chinnytech.pl and Pulse Asia. Our today's event goal is to show you career and work opportunities in Asia. We will also talk about how companies operate on Asian markets and how their expansion there looks like. Today's guest is Jakub Zakrzewski, Managing Director at Kraken in Singapore, who leads the company's strategic development in APAC. Previously, he was responsible for launching Revolut's operations in Singapore in 2019 and leading its growth in the region. Before Revolut, Jakub was head of growth at EasyShip, a company that won Hong Kong's Technology Company of the Year award in 2017, joining there as one of its early employees in 2015. It is also worth mentioning that Jakub was awarded the Forbes title of 30 under 30. Jakub, thank you very much that you decided to take part in this event. And I would like just go directly to the first question. How your career in Asia began and why you chose this direction?
So first of all, thank you very much for having me. Very happy to share my experiences and especially looking forward to the Q&A session. I'll be happy to answer any questions that any one of you will have. Second of all, I've never heard about the Polish night in Singapore. Maybe this is something that we'll need to discuss after the event. But if there's anything like this, I would love to join. Answering your question, I think it has all began where I was at a similar point of time in my career. I was finishing up my master's studies, and I was studying at ESADE in Barcelona. And that was the classic path after a business school where 90% of your class wants to go to investment banking or consulting, and 10% are the weird guys that want to go anywhere else. And at that point of time, it was something similar for me. I was always thinking that I would be going to London to be an investment banker. But I was extremely I was extremely drawn to the teacher that I had about the BC and PE class during my master's studies. And I actually decided to write my master thesis about angel investing, which I saw was a problem at that time. So when I was writing it, I started writing about how it looked like in Europe, and there was not much happening. And one of the early companies in Europe that was actually incubating and accelerating startups was Rocket Internet. And while I was researching about the company, it sounded fascinating that they were actually building businesses that were pretty successful. And then at the same time, while I was interviewing with banks in London, I decided that why not give it a try and apply for a job in Rocket Internet. And at that point of time, they were hiring all over the world, but I thought Singapore is going to be something that always has drawn my attention, and Asian markets were growing the fastest out of all the others that they were expanding into. So yeah, I applied online. 5 interviews later, the guys told me, "Can you come to Malaysia in 24 hours?" I said, like, okay, just give me a couple of hours so I can think about it. And yeah, and this is the time that and I had an offer also to go to London at that time. So this was the decision that when I was 22, you're just thinking, what am I going to regret more? Just randomly going and building an Amazon copycat in Asia, or just to be an investment banker for the next 2 years, so then I can be a private equity analyst for the next 2 years, and then I'll figure that out after 5 years of working 120 hours per week. so yeah, I decided that I'll regret more if I don't go, not hop on the plane and go to Malaysia without knowing too much about Malaysia. Before that, I just decided it's an awesome opportunity for me to actually try something that it's really exciting. And I thought even if it doesn't work out, I'll always have a backup plan, and I was sure that I could figure that out. So in general, this is how it started. It was supposed to be. Initially just for a year, just to try it out. I thought, okay, I thought a year time would be good enough for me to assess if it's good. If it's not, I can always come back earlier. And yeah, and that was 2013, and since then, with some small breaks in between for London, um, I was actually most of the time in Asia. So my 1 year has turned into probably what is right now 8 years altogether, or maybe 7 years and 1 year in London, but 7 years in Asia from that time. So this is how it all started, and this is actually something that has made or aligned my career into the goal that I wanted to achieve. I thought I was very lucky to be in the right place at the right time, met great people, and I think this is something that has helped me really with the next steps that you've mentioned in my career.
We're responsible in Asia for growth and development of companies like EasyShip and Revolut. Can you say us something about how it looks from inside? How companies do their expansion on Asian markets, and what troubles they meet when they do that?
So I think the first company that I joined was the rockets company that wanted to be the Amazon of Southeast Asia. So that was an interesting project because it was a bunch of people that were trying to build an e-commerce business, and no one had any experience in e-commerce before. So that was a great opportunity to really get a building online businesses 101 lesson, and also the ability to really pick up marketable skills when it comes to startups. um, I think in general, the difference between Southeast Asia and Asia in general compared to Europe is that it's much more fragmented. It's not a one market. It's even though it's a one region, it basically each of them has its own pretty significant differences. I think additionally to that, they are still developing. I think in many cases when it comes to the infrastructure, at that point of time, they were playing catch up to Europe and definitely to the US when it comes to let's say for e-commerce business, being able to send packages in a short time was a problem because the postal services were not there. Uh, Online payments at that point of time were also not there, or if they were very expensive. So you're breaking down what e-commerce really is, and then you can see that the infrastructure is there, or in many cases is actually a little bit different to what it is in Europe. So you're facing problems on the infrastructure side that are basic when it comes to building any online business. But I think the best thing about this is that you are really or I was really at the forefront of all these changes really happening. Singapore is completely different to the rest of Asia. Singapore is basically like Switzerland, it's just a little bit hotter. And the rest of Asia is it's probably feeling like Poland in 1990s or early 2000, where there's really a lot of opportunity for growth, a lot of things to build. And right now, it's in some cases the markets are growing even at a faster rate compared to Poland in these times. So I think in general, it's very on the infrastructure side. It was definitely something that was a problem. On the talent side, it was a problem as well. That's why the Rocket Internet's idea was to bring these guys from Europe into Asia, so they have experience in business or in building companies, and they can do it in Asia, which was the know-how meets opportunity. Um, and that was probably the second biggest problem after the infrastructure. And I think without going too much into details into all these specific things, I think talent plus infrastructure were the two core things. that they could still be fixed. It just took some time and effort to get it done. Whenever you still have to deal with basic things like this.
So you think that in Asia there is still lack of professionals who could deal with some problems like infrastructure or e-commerce, and there is still possibilities for young people like we to work there and improve their ideas in growing markets.
I think so. I'm talking about 8 years ago, and as you can see, things are changing pretty rapidly. So in 8 years, it was a completely different world back then. So I wouldn't recommend copying one to one my thinking because things are changing so fast that it's just not applicable anymore. But in general, I'm always the last guy to try to give any advices to people. But I think one thing that I can really recommend is to think about to follow the similar thinking pattern where you're thinking about what is the area that is developing, what is the area that is really growing at the moment, and then either join a business or start a business. If you want to build the next Facebook right now, maybe you're a little bit too late, unless you want to do something like Clubhouse, for example. But in general, 99% of businesses are probably a little bit too late. Then the next wave of companies after social media were e-commerce or early finance companies. It doesn't mean that you will not be able to build a company. It just means that there's already a market saturation in many of these markets. The best thing about Asia is that in some cases, maybe not e-commerce per se, but in some other cases, there are still opportunities to play geographical arbitrage, where you can see that there's an idea in US, it is working. Maybe 1 year later, someone took the same idea in Europe and it's also working, and maybe no one else has done it in Malaysia, and it's not a small market. So maybe if you can replicate that, there's still opportunities for a business to be quite successful, because usually these things come in a similar pattern. I think e-commerce is a good example for this. I think fintechs are also a good example where fintechs where actually the boom in fintechs happened similarly in US and in Europe. And it took probably 1 or 2 years after that for it to really become a thing in Southeast Asia. Putting China aside because it's a species on its own, and probably putting Korea and Japan as well on the side, because this is also like each of them are completely different markets. But the rest of Southeast Asia, so Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, etc., they're all pretty similar.
Okay, I will just briefly come back to your career because you started here in Warsaw in KPMG, and then you moved
Yes.
to Malaysia to Rocket League. So I have a question for you. Why did you choose to work in a startup environment? Because you were
So
previously
I
in
think
corporation.
yeah, so I was writing my master thesis, and at the same time I was in KPMG. I think the reason why I wanted to go there is first to check it out, and I think this was one of the things that I wanted to be back home, and I wanted to have an internship during the time when I was back home that I can write my master thesis at the same time. So I thought that KPMG would be a good idea, and it was an interesting lesson for me on thinking about my professional development as well. After which I was basically very happy to go on the other side and to join the startup world, because I wanted to experience something that is exciting. I already tasted how it felt to be working in Warsaw in Big Four, and it was okay. But I wanted to do something different, and I think that was also one of the reasons why I decided to go and take a little bit more risky path compared to the path that most people would probably take at that time.
Do you know maybe the differences between working in corporations like KPMG in Poland and in Asia?
No, I don't know how KPMG really works in Asia. I think corporations in Asia, it's also pretty a generic statement to say how they work. But I think one thing that they definitely have in common is that people really work very hard in all these corporations. So in Asia, especially, what you do kind of defines what kind of person you are, and everyone's extremely ambitious because the competition is big. So maybe one thing to note was that on average people would work a little bit more compared to even Europe, not only Poland, but in any corporations in Europe, that the working hours were probably a bit longer.
Okay, Kuba, did you have maybe some problems to adapt to the local working conditions in Asia? Maybe you had some problems to adapt to their culture and mentality?
Not at all. I was open. I was actually very happy that I can experience different culture, different type of people. Not that I have had too much time to explore the culture, knowing that when I joined, we were working all the time. But it was also something that was bonding us all together. So I was in a very lucky place where I was hanging out with people that were local, and also people that were expats coming from outside. So it was a good mix. We were hanging out at work, we were hanging out outside of work. We were working all the time at that time, but it was exciting because you're actually building a product that is just growing in front of you. And it's raising more and more money at higher and higher valuations, and it's becoming a unicorn, and everyone's just super excited. So the success story also helps you ride this wave of and allows you to actually really devote all these hours to build a company. So not at all. I think it was one thing that really bonded us was the work hours, and the mission to actually build something interesting. So it was not really a type of work where at 5 p.m. you were clocking out, and then you were doing your own thing. I think it's pretty safe to say that at that point of time, work was life for all of us, which sounds weird, but it was an extremely intense period, and the company was growing like crazy. So yeah, I think and it didn't change obviously at Revolut, which was a very similar environment also in London. So I never really felt any problems with blending in. I think the opposite. I always felt that this is something that it's new, that it's exciting, and definitely a good place to be.
Okay, Rocket Internet and EasyShip was Asia-focused businesses, but then you joined to Revolut, which now is a global company. Could you tell us, please, how Revolut expansion to Singapore looked like?
I think it was not very complicated. When I joined in 2017, the company was probably around 50 people in London, and we were working in a co-working space in Canary Wharf. So it's definitely a little bit different to a fancy office with 7 floors right now. And at that point of time, there was this attitude that the company, we just want to do things 10 times better and 10 times cheaper and 10 times faster than anyone else. And at the very beginning, one of the first, when you see one of the first Revolut logos, actually the subtitle under the logo was the Revolut was calling itself the global money app. And that was always at its core, and now of course is being seen more as a neobank and with many other features, but effectively being that one app for people that are working around the world, that are traveling around the world, and being able to use it all around the world was always at its core. So having said that, global expansion was something that came really natural. It's not a surprise that after that, basically, we were looking at expanding into Asia. We were looking at expanding into North America. We're looking at expanding into Australia. And we were also thinking about expanding into other regions, but then after that you basically it's an exercise that you can do in half of a day to pick to be like 80-20 sure what are the countries that it makes sense to expand, and you do an analysis further to validate your assumptions. But basically for us it was pretty straightforward. We after some time we already knew what countries we want to go into. And given that Singapore has a pretty straightforward regulatory landscape when it comes to e-money and fintechs, it is a place where probably in world's top 10 places when it comes to remittances. and people traveling. So combination of these and knowing what the USPs of Revolut were made it a good value proposition for the people in Singapore. Hence, Singapore was in one of these first batch of countries that were chosen to be for Revolut for expansion because of the core products that Revolut had at that time, which is free conversion rate for FX and free money transfers worldwide. And this is why, knowing that the market in Singapore is pretty big, this is why we decided that, or Revolut has decided that it makes sense to put it in the first batch of countries.
Okay, so you told us shortly about expansion, Revolt expansion to the Asian markets. Now I would like to ask for your current work at Kraken. What is your current role in this company, and what are your future plans connected with this company?
Yeah, so I think Kraken is one of world's leading cryptocurrency exchanges, and for me, I'm looking after Singapore operations and basically the whole growth for the company in the APAC region. Thinking about Revolut in 2017, the thing that was obvious is that it was the right company at the right time, where it was everyone, maybe not in Europe, but in the UK, everyone was fed up with low quality services of financial products, and Revolut was solving that problem. So it was a massive wave of companies that were coming up and becoming fintechs. My own personal bet is that the same thing that I've seen with e-commerce in 2013 in Asia booming, with e-money and fintechs in the UK booming in 2016, 17. The reason why I joined crypto is this is my own personal bet that this is the next industry that is going to be growing as fast as the two previous ones that I was in. I was very lucky and fortunate to be a part of great companies that were in good places at the right time. So after leaving Revolut, I always thought that I want to continue learning and continue being on that steep curve of the industry growing, and this is also something that helps me grow personally. So I wouldn't find myself being a great person in the oil and gas industry, but I thought that if I had to choose and make a bet with my own time of what industry is next, what is there next when it comes to disruption, my own bet is that it's crypto, and I've been with the company already for a little bit more than 1 year after leaving Revolut. And yeah, and seems like for as of now, we are experiencing a bull market in crypto, and crypto is back on the first pages of many newspapers. So hopefully this will continue to be the trend, and I'm very happy that I can be in Kraken, which is leading the change for crypto globally, where I can also learn from people that have been within the industry for a very long time. And combining their experience with my experience of building companies, whether Revolut or with Lazada and Rocket Internet. I think it's something that benefits the company the most, and I'm very happy to be in this place at this time.
If you work with currencies, cryptocurrencies, you also can invest in them. Do you invest in cryptocurrencies, and maybe you work because you work with them daily?
I do, but I don't think this is something that's drawn me into crypto. I didn't think about crypto as a get rich easy scam as people were thinking about it in 2015, where crypto was very early. For me, I'm just a massive fan of technology, and I've seen in fintech that there's still a lot of things to be fixed when it comes to how money moves and how financial services are really structured. And I think going a little bit beyond, if Bitcoin is 10K, 20K, 40K, because no one knows what it's going to be. I'm making a personal bet that Bitcoin is going to be a great store of value, but I'm betting in a long-term perspective. So for me, I don't get too excited about the changes in price on a daily or weekly basis. I'm looking at it on a yearly basis, and I feel this is a good investment on this time frame. And Bitcoin is just one of them. If you think about it, and I'm sure many of you guys are excited about, for example, venture capital. if you're thinking about cryptocurrencies, what you're doing is a venture capital game. You're looking at different currencies behind which there are people that are putting projects together, and they're trying to solve a particular problem, which within a particular sub industry in many cases in finance, with their own technology. So Bitcoin works, for example, right now in being seen as a store of value. Ethereum is basically like an app store for many other companies that are using this technology to build. And the recent development is, for example, all the DeFi, so decentralized finance companies that are allowing you to just cut out the middleman in financial services transaction, which is going to be definitely the future of finance. You have other ones that are solving, for example, for international money transfers, making it cheaper and faster. So I'm not too excited about prices. It can go up and down. If when my friends think that I work in crypto and I can tell them if it's a good time to buy Bitcoin, I really can't. I'm always telling them, look, if you want to buy it and hold to it for the next 5 years, then it's definitely worth it because it's changing the way people are storing value. But is it a good time? And do I know for sure that it's not going to go down? I don't know. And I'm not a capital markets guy, so I'm not going to make a fancy technical analysis to try to be fancy and predict anything. Not only because I don't know anything about it, and also I don't even want to go into it because this is not the reason why I decided to go into crypto. I just think that in the next couple of years, it will be very silly if anyone would be still using paper money, given all the technology that we have, and you can do things much more efficient. And I think we will have one step, which is e-money, and everyone will start paying with cards. But I think it's a very natural transition that under the hood, we're actually going to replace many financial services with infrastructure that comes from cryptocurrencies, that is going to be blockchain, that is going to be DeFi, that is basically working on Ethereum. That for end user, the services are going to be better and cheaper, but basically the change is going to be happening on how everything is happening under the hood.
Well, you are working in Asia for 7 years. Am I? Have you ever thought about going back to Poland or changing the region to USA, Middle East?
So I'm not exactly sure about US, especially with the political instability right now in the recent months, and in the markets over there. I feel Asia is growing. I feel good in a growing industry, in a growing region, because this is the way that I can learn the most. I will definitely at some point of time come back to Krakow, which is my hometown, and shout out to anyone that is from Krakow, where I'm definitely Team Krakow, and at some point of time I'm going to come back. But for now, I'm very happy to be in Singapore, which is very comfortable, has a lot of opportunities when it comes to different industries, and great people are flooding here because of quality of life and because of the opportunities. So not saying I'll be here for the rest of my life, definitely. At some point of time, I'll definitely go back to Krakow. But I'm not seeing myself working outside of these two places probably.
You said that Asia is growing, but Africa is emerging market too. So maybe you can consider
True.
working there.
True, might be that if it's already happening. I think Nigeria is growing like crazy, and you can see that these concepts that are first coming into US, then are coming into Europe, then they're coming into Asia, then they're coming into Africa even at the same time. You can see it when you think about food delivery startups. You see it when it comes to ride-hailing startups, that at the same time, these are the companies that are creating the core infrastructure of tech startups in these countries. So yeah, I think right now you see the first neobanks appearing in Africa. So they are probably again a couple of years later, and they are playing this geo arbitrage compared to Europe and Asia. And I wish them all the best, because this is how the economies are going to be growing. We've seen that in Europe. We're seeing that in Asia, that this is going to be the main growth driver for economies. So I'm sure that Africa is going to have it. Why not? Never say never. maybe I'll work in Africa. For now, I'm happy in Asia and in Singapore, and I'm sure that there's still a lot to build here.
So what was your most interesting project you have done so far in Asia?
I think definitely launching Revolut in Asia is a task that took 2 years, and it's an extremely complex task that involves every single business line, every single department of the company, managing the various external stakeholders as well, financial regulators, vendors, um, hiring a team. So it was complex because it was just a massive project in which you had to deal with big problems almost on a weekly basis to resolve it. And a combination of not only putting a company out there, but also successfully launching it, so that it actually gets traction and people are using it in new markets. Was a big challenge, but fortunately everything went really well. And after blood, sweat, and tears, there was a sun at the end, and things were looking really well. So it was definitely tough. It was complex. It was nerve-wracking, but I think it was a great school of how to really build businesses. And I guess this is something that it's pretty hard to pick up in university. You just have to do it. You just have to get into the mud, get dirty, get some scars. And in this case, this is the most optimal but intense way of learning.
You said that you were also hiring people for your companies. Could you tell us maybe what skills you demand when you hire and recruit some people to your companies?
Yes, so that's a very good question. I think number one most important skill at this point of careers, or actually there are two most important things. First of all, problem solving and being analytical and rational. I think this is something that probably I would put number one. I think people can figure things out really easily right now. You don't have to study anything because even if you're new to a particular area, if you're smart, if you're rational and make logical decisions, if you're analytical and pretty okay with data, you can learn everything, basically whatever comes into your hands. So I think this is number one, and number two, just being open and absorbing things like a sponge. I'm learning all the time. If people come in and think that after university the learning has stopped, they're probably already losing, because the learning is actually beginning after you finish school. Is a completely new reality where you just need to adapt to new skills as soon as possible, and ensure that even if you don't do something right, you can reflect on it, and the next time you do it, you actually do it a little bit better. So if someone has this attitude of constantly learning, constantly testing, constantly moving forward and pushing themselves, I think this is something that is always going to benefit them. I mean, if you're coming out of university, no one really cares if you did a master's in finance, international business, management, or any other name, right? Like what you're bringing to the business is that you're hardworking, you're analytical, and you can solve some problems for the business. So in this case, I think this was a shock for me, because after a good school, I thought that I'm going to be the finance guy, and I was doing something completely different. Because technology startups don't need corporate finance at early stage. They don't need people that wanted to be consultants at early stage or investment bankers. They need people that either build the product, help optimize processes of the product, or sell the product via sales or marketing. And it just boils down to these things. So I would definitely recommend picking the right battle that you want to do, and then just work hard and optimize along the way. So I think these are the things that I'm also looking when I'm hiring people.
You have studied both in Poland and Barcelona, so you can tell us what is the advantage of foreign studies over Polish, and did it help you to achieve your goals?
So it's funny because I probably have even different perspective to every one of you, because I studied in Krakow University of Economics, which I'm sure many of you consider not being the best school in Poland when it comes to business. I think what this school has given me was that. I was able to the program was extremely challenging, but just because you were 99% of the things that you were doing is actually learning theory by heart. Um, we didn't in Krakow. We didn't have exposure to great businesses that could come in on campus and tell us how real life looks like. It was extremely academic, which was a good school of getting the basics right, and it was a good school of really taking the hits and be able to go through these classes where you really and you had teachers that really only cared if you knew line by line what's happening in the textbooks. So it tests your resilience and it tests your ability to really go through it, but it doesn't really prepare you for real life. Um, so I think after when I did my master's in Barcelona, that was the first step of kind of getting the exposure to real life. So think about me. I was already when I was your guys' age, I was, you know, behind you what you guys already know of real life. But I think what kind of got me going was this ability to learn and really work harder than anyone else. Because my eyes started opening during my master's, where suddenly from a class in Krakow, where people thought that it's a dream to go to be an auditor in a big four company, suddenly you're in the same class where people were a private equity analyst in London already for 2 years and decided to do masters, and they were working for Goldman Sachs and McKinsey's of this world. And you're clashing with them because you have a completely different perspective. And then this is where you start chasing. You're thinking about these guys, and you seeing these guys and thinking, wow, this is a complete new universe to me. I think it looks really exciting. Let me play catch up and learn actually the things that they already know that I just didn't have the ability to learn. So um, I think as a basics, it was a great school because it was extremely demanding, but it was super focused on theory, and I think it was one of the best decisions that I've made. That I then decided to do my master's outside, which was literally just throwing me out of the cliff, and I had to figure that out. Complete different world, complete different universe, and yeah, and it was good. This is if you're so much outside of your comfort zone, this is the only way you grow when you where you're thinking like, holy shit, what's happening on and what's happening here, and then you figure it out, and then life is okay. So yeah, and I think this is something that I really enjoyed, and I saw the value, and that's why I always tried to put myself outside of this comfort zone. I know it sounds cliche like a career personal coach, but it's very true. That I just thought like, okay, if I'm too comfortable at the age of 20 something, it means that I'm definitely doing something wrong, and I need to just put myself out there just to do some new things.
In SGH, we have a lot of students clubs, and we are able to do a lot of student projects. Also, this webinar might be a student project for me. So I have a question. Do employers in Asia appreciate student activities, and is it important for them?
I think I wouldn't even think about this from this perspective. Like, if I would always think about it from employer's perspective, like, why would they hire you? They have a lot of candidates, and they have to choose one. Probably this is one data point that it's good to have, but would it be something that was going to make it? Probably not. They just need someone that is going to come in and is going to help them. Uh, and of course, because you're in student societies, maybe you're better in project management, maybe you're better in organizing or things outside of work, and you're a little bit hardworking. These are just additional indications and additional data points for the hiring manager to consider. It's not going to be a golden formula that is going to say yes, definitely it's going to work, because ultimately hiring managers are hiring for different positions and they need different things. So what I would really recommend is just always ensuring that you can come in and bring to the table the hard work, bring to the table analytical skills, and doing whatever it takes for the company to succeed, whatever it is. If it's a corporation, if it's a startup, maybe the initial screening, it will look a little bit better if you have a classic consulting resume where you can put your leadership skills at the age of 20 something. And maybe it looks good, but ultimately they will always hire a person who they think is going to do the job best. So maybe if it's something that a job that does not require too much communicating with others, and they just need someone that is a wizard in Python, maybe it will not help too much if you want to be a business analyst. However, if you want to be a VC analyst, and the community part is very important for you to know people, to be engaged with people, to be able to source companies. Maybe this will help. So ultimately, the way that I think about it is never solution first. So saying, is being in clubs a good solution? I always like to think about the problem that you're solving for the employers. So what is it that they want from you? And what is it that you can bring to the table, other than just trying to find a golden way, saying, if I'm in a student society, it's going to make me successful. And guys, I was not in any student societies. I know it sounds weird, probably in SGH, you guys are in 5 altogether, and you're always busy. And look at me at 22. I was not even in one student society. I was in a school that was in Krakow, not in Warsaw, and still I was pushing for it because there was not much that I could bring to the table other than hard work and being pretty analytical. And I was lucky to be in the right place where they actually needed someone like this. So I would probably suggest looking at it from this perspective more. If you want to be a data scientist, maybe it doesn't really matter, but you should be the best guy in SQL and Python, and do great regression analysis and do machine learning and natural language processing, right? But if you want to be a consultant, maybe it helps that you're good with people. So I would say it always depends, and it's always linked to what you're thinking you're good at, number one, and the second thing, what you think you want to do after, and that will make you happy.
Kuba, would you change something in your long career way? Would you maybe
Uh,
change company in some time?
no, I think given what I knew at that time, I think I was very lucky to make the right decisions, and I hope that I will continue making good decisions. So I don't think I would change anything. Obviously, it's very easy to say right now, with the current level of knowledge that I have, what I would change, and probably that would be everything. But the idea of this game is not to know everything up front. The idea of this game is to make the best decisions at this point of time where you are. And then if you don't make the right decision, you just look back and think, okay, it was not the best thing, but how do I improve? So with time, probably there's a lot of things that I would change, given the knowledge that I have. But as I look how much I knew back then and the timing that I had to make these certain decisions at, I wouldn't change anything. And I was very lucky that these decisions that I made were actually pretty okay.
Okay, I would like, it will be the last question, maybe not last, but least. What advices could you give to us and all the participants, all our viewers which will watch us on YouTube? What can we do to work in Asia?
Yes, I think first advice that I would give is not to take any advice from 99% of people. Because if I took advice from other people, I would be probably in a completely different place. And the reason for this is that you guys, first of all, only you know what really makes you happy or what drives you, and only you have the most data points to actually make the right decision. So I don't think I'm in a good spot to give any advice. I can share what worked for me, which was basically a combination of two things. Always being one of the hungriest and the most hardworking guys out there, and I think this always pays off. And always thinking about personal growth. So really, one of these Revolut values is never settle, and this is something that I've always had in my life where I always thought that this is not the time to play it safe. This is the time to go all in. And I don't really recommend playing it safe in your 20s. I recommend going all in. I recommend taking big risks because this is the risk that I took, and it pays out. It might not pay out for you, but at least you will say that you will not regret it. So it worked for me. I recommend trying at least to taking some big risks. And again, from my experience, 90% of my class went to consulting, banking, and all of them left since then, and no one of them knew what they want to do with life. So it's good to figure out what works for you, test everything. Maybe you're going to be a great banker, maybe a great consultant. But if you're thinking about it just because everyone else is, probably it's not a long-term solution. So I recommend trying things, learning, seeing if it works. If it works, doubling down. If it doesn't, changing. And just be like a machine learning algorithm. That's a good way of thinking that, I'm not going to give you the right answers, but this is the, I believe, right way of thinking about finding the right answer. And if anyone tries to advise any of you guys, maybe outside of parents and very close friends, probably I would take it with a pinch of salt, because either these guys have no idea what they're talking about, or their advice is wrong, because they don't have the data points. So this is how I think about it.
Okay, thank you for this advice. I would like also ask for this Hong Kong Hong Kong Technology Company of the Year award, which you got at Easy Ship. How you achieved that?
You don't think about it. It comes your way. Hong Kong at that point of time didn't have a very big startup scene, so there were just a few technology startups. And because we were bringing experience from a well-known Asian company that has become a unicorn, the media picked it up, and somehow we managed to get it because we got good traction. So all these things come by accident. You don't aim for them. They're just a byproduct of hard work and putting a product out there that people want to use, basically.
Okay, and the last question will be: is it easy to set up your business in Asia or not?
Yeah, I think Singapore is very easy. I would really recommend it. I think it's a great place to live. Maybe it's a bit tougher in other countries in Asia, but tougher meaning it is doable. But it's not that it's impossible to do. All these things are pretty easy. They just take some time and effort. And I really recommend. I think it's a great time right now to actually take a risk and start whatever kind of company you're thinking. Even if you think that there's a problem in the market and you're able to somehow solve it, there's so much VC money flying around, and it's never been easier to start a company. So I think this is something that is extremely exciting, and when to do it if not now, if you're 20 something and you can afford 8 years at least before starting a family, buying a house, buying a Labrador and taking out a mortgage to take some risks. So I think it's extremely exciting times.
Jakub, thank you very much for your participation and answering my question. I see that we have a lot of questions on our chat, and I would like to move to them. So first question is from Claudia. Can I ask Claudia for asking Kuba this question?
Or maybe I can just answer it right away,
Okay.
without anyone speaking, so it's faster. What can be the big difficulties during working in Singapore? What should we prepare for when we plan to start working there? I think Singapore is easy. I don't think there are many difficulties here. I think everything is well organized. There's a lot of people that are from outside of Singapore that also want to make friends with people that are not from here. It's a little bit more expensive than for example, an average European city. So I will be prepared if you're coming here, for example, without a job lined up, that it's probably not the cheapest place to stay in. And especially accommodation is pretty expensive. So it's good to have a friend here that can basically help you with a couch, and you can stay here. Other than that, it's a pretty easy place to be in. It's lovely. The temperature is always the same. It's always 30 degrees. We don't have seasons, so I haven't seen snow in a year and a half. So I really recommend it, and it's very cozy. It's just a very safe place. So yeah, it feels like a bubble a little bit. So I definitely recommend anyone coming into Singapore, but it's also very organized. And some people after couple of years, they say like they need to have some adventure, they need to have some more thrills, and they want to go a little bit more crazy. And then they go to Bangkok, for example. And I know a lot of people, also people from Poland that I used to work with, that moved to Bangkok, and they love it because the pace of life is faster. You can go out on every day. The city has much more to offer. And it's definitely much more fun. But Singapore has its benefit in being organized and being clean, and being very well put together. So it always depends on what you're looking for.
Okay, so now we can move to the question from Michał. Do you think that we will see soon end of the bullish cycle on crypto in months?
I don't know. As I mentioned, I'm really not a capital markets guy, and any prediction that I'll make is as good as your guys. I believe in 5 years' time, the projects like Bitcoin are here to stay, or Ethereum, and I'm sure that they will go up in value. Each of these other cryptocurrencies is almost like a VC company that you need to research and analyze and understand the team, understand the problem, understand the technology to really make a good bet if this is something that is going to be surviving. So I really recommend kind of almost a physical approach and the first principle approach towards all these things, not to get misled by the media or the hype, and but to think about the real value of underlying asset. And if you don't want to hold it for the 5 years, probably it's not the best asset to invest in because no one knows. It might go up, it might go down. But that's why it's the volatility is one of the unique features for cryptocurrencies versus, for example, equities.
When we talk about cryptocurrencies, I will ask, what do you think about Dotcoin and hype from Reddit for it?
Yes, I think it's you can see that you can pump everything right now, and you can see how big of an influence these big Twitter accounts have in general, that they can move markets. So I'm looking at it from this perspective. As a coin itself, you can donate it to people. It's as good as any other token that it's on a similar blockchain. So it doesn't have any unique features. It has a nice dog that is representing it. So it's a meme, it's a hype, right? It's the same thing that you can see that with the Wall Street bets and the GameStop. It was all hyped out because of social interactions with people. It's the same thing right now. So I'm not the guy to say when is the good time to come in and go out, but you see how GameStop is ending, and the bull cycle of GameStop is probably finishing. So might be similar, a good learning point on how things could also play out for Dogecoin.
Okay, we can go to the question from Tigers. I'm
Or maybe
wondering.
just one thing about DeFi. Mihao has asked, what do you think about DeFi? So DeFi coins, again, it depends. What is the connection of the coin versus the project that is behind it? Maybe I can speak about DeFi in general. I think DeFi is going to change completely the way we're talking about finance. If people are able to borrow money and lend money from each other without any institution in between, with people are able to exchange digital assets without any institution in between, and can make the whole operations and technology of it much more efficient and without any middleman and cheaper because of this. I think this is a technology that is here to stay. And there are very interesting projects within DeFi, but I think they are definitely here to stay because they are just great people that are really good at building good companies, that they see the potential that DeFi has. So it's definitely within crypto is probably one of the most exciting places to be in. If you guys want to know more about DeFi, Kraken has released a DeFi report, I think last week. So DM me on LinkedIn if you guys would like to have a link. I'm very happy to share that. That goes in depth about DeFi, what it is, what are the risks, and how it actually works. So very bullish on DeFi. I think the technology is here to stay, and it's going to be disrupting everything that we're seeing in financial services right now.
Okay. Thank you for answering Michał questions. Now we can move to Tiger's question.
Acquiring clients from Singapore for digital marketing services. we've managed to start some operations in ASEAN markets via some Polish companies expanding there, but maybe do you have some other ideas? I don't think I have enough data. I'm very happy to share after that what are the how I put together growth plans of expansion into Singapore. It's a completely different strategy when you're planning to acquire retail users, or for B2C, completely different strategy if you want to acquire business users. If you're having a digital marketing agency and you're pitching clients, from offshore to use your services. Again, it's in a B2B play, the most important marketing channel is content, SEO, and it's business development and sales. I mean, it's not rocket science that these channels work always best when it comes to B2B businesses. And it's not easy if you do not have a presence in Singapore, because Singapore has a lot of other digital marketing agencies. So the question they would ask is, why would I go with someone that I cannot even put the face to? So maybe in the times of COVID, it would be a little bit easier. I'm happy to share my thoughts about B2B marketing in general, structuring, frameworking, and strategizing. So happy to connect after and share my ideas and what worked for me.
Okay, next question is from Bartek, who is asking about IT market in Singapore and tells us his story about applying for a job there.
Yeah, so IT, I don't know exactly about what is the databases and data warehouses business like. I don't know. This is not the area that I'm looking into. I know that in general, if you're thinking about regional headquarters for many companies here, and many of these companies are very big and they're handling a lot of data, and they have their servers here, because the regional headquarters for AWS is here and Google Cloud is here. So in general, I would say that's probably one of the strongest in Southeast Asia. But this is just my from thin air prediction, how I think about it. And the second question, 30 CVs for various IT positions, but I haven't received any feedback. It might be because people in Singapore don't want to hire foreigners because of COVID. So getting a visa is harder. The company needs to go through the whole process to hire a foreigner. And a part of the process is to prove why they can't hire any one of the certain skills in Singapore, and why are these skills so different to what they have in Singapore. And this applicant should also prove that he possesses this kind of skills that Singapore local residents do not have. So in general, people are flooding recruiters. I don't know why they're not replying to you. It's rude not to reply to job application. And I wouldn't say it's a stereotypical Singapore or Hong Kong thing. I think these guys are just flooded with applications, and they're just even automatically rejecting people that do not have the right to stay in Singapore, just because it's so hard right now to hire foreigners. Plus, the government is incentivizing hiring local talent. I think they're subsidizing a part of their salary, and it makes it just easier, obviously, to hire them. So I wouldn't take it too personally. If you're sending 30 CVs, I would also think about maybe reducing the number and to approach someone on LinkedIn and ask them directly. Or maybe if you have 30 CVs, maybe you just need to adjust something in these CVs just to stand out a little bit more. It's very hard to say. I don't know enough. These were just a couple of assumptions from my side.
Okay, next question is from Magdalena. It is about career opportunities in Asia after humanities studies.
100%. I think there are people from all sorts of backgrounds in Singapore. Again, the most important thing is, would you do something better than anyone else in Singapore is currently doing, just to get hired and convince an employer? I really believe that knowing languages, and especially Chinese, is very useful in Singapore if any one of you knows or is studying, because many people want to pick it up that are coming as foreigners, and they want to learn a little bit Chinese, even though everything is in English, but still it's a second language here. So yeah, I think having relevant language skills definitely is something that can help.
Okay, next question is from Kay. It is about technical obstacles and factors that you had to overcome when you wanted to move to Asia?
No obstacles. The company sponsored my visa first to work 6 months in Malaysia, and then I was transferred within the same company to work in Singapore. So that was probably what solved many problems, because it's very tough to come into Singapore as a junior. But internal transfers are probably the best way. So I was internally transferred within the same company to Singapore, and it was not a problem.
Okay. Next question from Maciek Koido. How you rate Singapore as a place to raise capital for new ideas? And have you been raising capital during runs of Lazada in Singapore or outside?
No, I have not been raising rounds, unfortunately, for Lazada. These were the high management people at that time, and I was pretty junior when I was there. So I was not involved. I was preparing some decks as an analyst initially. I don't know if this counts, but I put some fancy presentations and waterfall charts. So was my only contribution to capital raising. Is Singapore a good place to raise capital? If you're comparing it to other Southeast Asian countries, 100% yes. If you're comparing it to Europe or US, depending if you're looking at smart capital, depending on what you want to achieve with this capital, I don't think it's a problem to raise capital for good ideas right now. I think a bigger problem is who do you want to have on board that can actually make intros, guide you on how to build a business. And having the right VC is almost as critical as hiring the right people. So yeah, I don't think it's hard. Money is flying around in Singapore right now. It's a great time to start a company.
Do you think also that it is easier to raise capital in Singapore rather than in Poland?
I don't know how raising capital is in Poland, to be honest. I have no idea. I just saw a couple of VCs that are popping up, which is great. I don't know these guys that are behind these VCs and what experience do they have operating a company or building and scaling a company to unicorn statuses, or what is their track record in investing. I really don't know. So it's very hard for me to say. Here you have a good combination of VCs that are hands-on operators and also people that were coming from high finance, and they decided to basically then go to VCs. So in Poland, I just have no idea. I know maybe one venture capital firm, and just because I know that it's in Krakow, and that's the only firm that I know. Other than that, I have no idea who other VCs are. And I hope they will do great, because I'm sure that the VC ecosystem also drives innovation.
Okay, thank you. Next question will be last question from Michał. What do you think about SEC lawsuit against Ripple? Do you think it might later on spill over another crypto and will result in worldwide crypto regulations?
I was just laughing because I saw the comment from Maciej that I'll be very happy to answer, the last one. But when it comes to Ripple, I think it's going to be a very interesting one. I don't know the details. I think XRP in general, Ripple is going to be definitely spending a lot of time and effort and money for lawyers to lobby. I don't think it will happen overnight. But an interesting fact is that so far, as I know, seems like only the US regulator has really thought about XRP as a security. I haven't heard any other regulator outside that actually thought about XRP to be a security. So we will not only look at it from a US perspective, we're looking at it from a global perspective. I think Ripple has been saying that that US XRP volumes only contributed to, I think, 5% of total volumes. We shall see about it. In general, yeah, I think it's one of the biggest cases right now in crypto. I think it's very US centric. I don't think it affected yet anywhere else, but it has its own reasons why they are in a position where they are, I think.
Okay, and let's move to the question from Conrad. Why did you choose to get your master's degree in Barcelona? How would you compare life in Barcelona to this in Singapore? What place do you prefer?
Very good question. So, and I didn't talk about it. So after my bachelor's, when I was doing my bachelor's, I thought, well, maybe I can do something more than what I'm doing. So I decided to take a second bachelor in law at Jagiellonian University in Krakow. And then I thought, well, this is maybe not enough to study two things at the same time. Let me go for an exchange program in the US. So I went to the US for an exchange program. It opened my mind. I'm like, wow, this is a great way to meet people. This is a great way to study. Everything is very actionable, case study driven. I really don't see myself coming back to a normal way of studying that I saw back home. So I went back home to finish my bachelor's. I wrote I was writing my bachelor thesis and already studying for the GMAT in 20 that and that's 20 2011 or end of 2010, beginning of 2011. And I already knew, okay, I need to study outside. I loved it how the classes were given in the US, and I knew that I wanted to do my master's outside. And then obviously I was doing bachelor's in finance. I really like corporate finance. I was thinking about doing master's in corporate finance. And I was looking at the rankings. So I was looking at Financial Times rankings, and I was thinking about different schools, about what kind of programs they have, and which one would actually suit me best. And at that point of time, I applied to 3 schools: one in London, one in Italy, one in Barcelona. I went to visit on campus before choosing the one into each one of them, and I thought that at that point of time, Asada had the best class when it comes to the number of people in the class, the best program for me to really choose modularly which classes I want to take. I also saw the teachers that were there. They were also having some all the accreditation needed, and they were in top 5, I think, at that point of time in Europe for masters in finance. And my class was actually number 1 in the Financial Times ranking because it was like I think the best class in the last 10 years. So. And that was extremely lucky. And then we worked all the time. So yeah, I think this is something that led me. And again, after doing my exchange program, I came back and I'm like, even if I'm doing 2 bachelors or 1 or 2 studies at the same time, which everyone thought it was going to be hard, and I didn't find it this hard because there was a lot of overlap. I could figure out that I didn't have to attend classes on one because I could just passport my grades from the other one, and it didn't become that big of a deal. And ultimately, it wouldn't get me anywhere, to be honest, because it was very theoretical and the opportunities were not really there for these kind of people. So I knew that I have to go out, put myself out there to continue this learning curve that I got from exchange program. And yeah, and this is why I chose Barcelona, because it was one of the top programs in Masters in Finance. Great campus, small classes, great teachers, and a curriculum that was really in line with what I wanted to do at that time, which was extremely corporate finance focused.
Okay, now we can move to the fun question from Maciej.
Why is it so bright? And okay, so Maciek knows that this is not my background, obviously. Maciek has seen what my real background is before the call. He's seen that it's very far away from what you guys see in the Zoom background over here. So this is just a nice Zoom background. No one in Singapore can have a place like this unless you're basically, you know, filthy rich. So I wish one day, maybe in 40 years, but definitely not now. So the reality is way sadder, unfortunately, than what you're seeing as my background.
Okay, next question from Key. How many points did you get on your GMAT?
High 600s. So I believe that this is just a factor to consider. I think everything above 600 is okay. I got high 600s at the first attempt. I did some studying before. In general, I was also pretty lucky because I just wanted to pass 600. I think this was the aim, and I think 600 is a good mark to pass. If you want to do fancy MBA in the US, 700 is a good mark to pass as a rule of thumb because of the competition over there. Okay. Which doesn't mean that people that have less cannot come in. It's just another additional point that can increase the odds of actually getting in.
The last question in chat is, do Singapore have sandboxes for fintech startups?
Yes, there are a lot. I'm mentoring in 3 accelerator programs for fintechs. The regulator has its own sandbox, but the meaning of a sandbox from a regulator means that you're in a sandbox and you don't have to have all requirements for the particular license satisfied. But there are also accelerator programs in Singapore in fintech. Kamil, you can reach out to me. I can share with you the ones that I'm involved in. There's also two programs that help you find a co-founder and help you find the right idea to build a company. So not really a sandbox, but more like an incubator program. So so you can just DM me on LinkedIn, and I will let you know which ones are these. And if you want to know more, I can maybe connect you with someone that I know.
Okay, I have questions to participants. Do you have some more questions? If yes, you can ask them directly to Kuba. You don't have to write this on chat. Okay, I can see that there is no question. Jakub, thank you very much that you decided to take part in this event. Thank you very
No
much.
worries. Thank you for having me.
No problem. It was a great pleasure, especially for Lotus League. Thank you, participants, that you decided to take part in this webinar in Zoom and for your questions. And also, I would like to thank you all our viewers on YouTube. And I think that's it. Once more,